Hello and welcome to From the National Assembly. I am Lami Ali. It's the season of budget defense, and on this edition of the program, we bring to you the budget defense session between the Ministry of Petroleum Resources and the Senate and House of Representatives Joint Committee on Petroleum Resources Upstream and Downstream. The ministry was led by the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Timi Silva, to the budget defense. Petroleum resources, the minister said, remain strategic to Nigeria's economy and the livelihood of citizens, which was why government will not relent in coming up with measures to plug leakages, fix refineries, and address challenges in the sector.
The issue of pipeline vandalization is something that we all have to worry about. It is not something only for the Ministry of Petroleum. It's a national malady because our pipelines are frequently vandalized. We cannot move product or even crude on the lines in most cases. And that is why you have a lot of tankers on the road. If you have all our pipelines working, you don't need too many pipeline tankers on the road because we would have piped everything. Even product would have been piped across the country. But unfortunately, our pipelines are not resting. And as you know, it is not just a ministry issue, it is more of a security issue. So I don't want to go into detail of the pipeline security. It's more of a security issue that concerns all of us, and let us as a country begin to tackle it. The fourth question was asked about deliverables. What have we done, especially on job creation? I want to just say this, that this country has not had any major final investment decision taken since Egina. This administration is very, very determined to ensure that we move forward on our projects, all pending projects. The FID on Train 7, NLNG Train 7, will be in place this quarter. And that is a job that is going to create a lot of jobs in the industry. Bonny LNG FID, the Train 7 FID, will create over 10,000 jobs by itself. Once that job starts, once the work starts on that project, a lot of jobs will be created. We are also expecting to take FID on Bunga Southwest, which is also going to create a lot of jobs. And as I said, we are going to engage in the rehabilitation of Port Harcourt Refinery to 2020, which is going to create a lot of jobs. So all these projects, plus more that will come on stream during this administration, will create jobs, not only for the lower cadre of people, but even to the higher people, because it will be at various levels. Contractors will work, artisans will get their jobs. This has not happened for a long time in this country. And I can assure you that soon a lot will begin to happen in the industry that will create a lot of jobs. You asked the question also about personnel costs, DPR personnel costs. That I will leave to the DPR acting director who is next to me. But let me just finish so that you can start. Then the most important question here was the fifth question about discovery of oil in Bauchi. I want to announce it is true that oil has been discovered in Bauchi. We believe already that it is in commercial quantity. And is also very good quality crude. There is oil and there is also a lot of gas. Presently, evaluation is being done, so we cannot go into details at all. Evaluation is ongoing, and later on we'll come with the details, but we can announce to you happily that crude oil has been discovered in Bauchi State. So, honorable member, you will soon be part of the honorable members representing oil-producing oil-producing constituencies. When you say tankers explode, you say filling stations are substandard or product is being smuggled. It is actually the responsibility of DPR. If you have 133,000 filling stations in the country, that's the figure? Filling stations? 133,000 filling stations in the country. And all those have to be regulated and monitored by DPR officials. You know how many tankers are on the road, and DPR officials are supposed to be active with them. DPR is one agency that has to look at the whole value chain of the oil industry, from the upstream to the DPR, to the downstream. They are the regulators of both the upstream and the downstream. So you can see that they require a lot of personnel. So if we shy away from giving them the necessary personnel costs, then we are shying away also from preventing some of these things, these disasters that we are all worried about. For DPR, they need to be everywhere. DPR is like the Nigeria police of the oil industry. They need to be everywhere in the industry because they are looking at even the product being shipped out. I mean, your crude oil being shipped out. They look at your production levels. They are looking at your filling stations. So they are really, really needed across the value chain of the oil industry. That's why you see that their personnel cost is usually very heavy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister.
The issue of $62 billion outstanding payments on the PSC is a very interesting issue. And I want to say that as a Nigerian, I'm the first person that will jump if that opportunity exists. But we must look at fund that is there for us to recover versus opportunity that has been missed. There are a lot of things we could have done yesterday. If you didn't do them yesterday, sorry. Even in law, you have what you call sleeping on your rights. If there was a provision of a law, which is your own law, and you slept on your rights for so long, and then you woke up, and then you say, oh, they must pay you all the backlog of 62 billion. I can tell you that we must live in the realm of reality. No company will have 62 billion sitting somewhere. $62 billion is a lot of money. I don't see how we can get $62 billion. Maybe we can still discuss with them, but let us also see it more as a lost opportunity. We are in the process of amending the Deep Shore Act now. And why are we amending it? It is to be able to ameliorate some of these lacunas so that going forward, we will not miss those opportunities anymore. I don't want to go into details of how the opportunity was missed, but it is unfortunate that we slept on our rights and we got to this pass. Now, if you compare it with the P&ID, they are not the same things at all. The P&ID too would not have happened if a few preemptive steps were taken. But we have not paid. Let's also agree, we as a country, we are not paid, and none of us will expect us to pay. We are fighting it, and I believe that in the end we will triumph, and we will not pay that money that they are asking of, because we know it is fraudulent. We all know that. So if we had already paid, and then the other people are refusing to pay, then it's a problem. But we too are ensuring that we will not pay that money, because we also know it is fraudulent. So I don't want us to compare the two cases. They are two different things. But even in our own case, we too, we will not pay. We don't want to pay. Now, the training of tanker drivers is something that's already in the plan in DPR. We agree that it is not just about the condition of the tankers. You also have to train the tanker drivers. And that's already in plan with DPR to train our tanker drivers. And we cannot, as a government, a responsible government, heap another issue of petroleum price hike or removal of subsidy on Nigerians. So it is not on the cards at all. We are just looking at how we can manage it. But of course, all of us agree, and I am one of the first to tell you that we also believe that the consumption that is being posted on a daily basis, it doesn't represent the actual consumption of petroleum products in this country. We don't believe that Nigerians are consuming over 60 million liters a day. There's a lot of smuggling. And because the petroleum product is cheaper in Nigeria, a lot of our neighbors are taking advantage of the cheaper prices in Nigeria. So Nigeria is now almost subsidizing half of Africa, which is very difficult for us to do. So you can see that the government is doing something about controlling some of these leakages. And once those leakages are in place, we believe that subsidy can be at least bearable, the cost of subsidy. If I talk about fixing the refineries, that's also another way of dealing with the same issue. If we fix the refineries and we're able to pump from the refineries, that will also reduce the cost of subsidy on the government. So the government is looking at it more from that angle than from the angle of removing subsidy. So it is not on the card at all. I know that there is pressure on Nigeria from other countries, but if you say the Germans say, oh yes, they are taxing and we are subsidizing, we will also tell them that their reality in Germany is different from our reality in Nigeria. Bulk cargo transport. Of course, when you say whether we are liaising with Ministry of Transport to move our bulk cargo, it is something we will always want to do. But you know that the bulk cargo transportation infrastructure is not also fully developed. If the railway network is very developed and we are not taking advantage of it, then you can ask us that question. But right now, as a country, we are also in the process of developing that infrastructure. And when that infrastructure is in place, definitely we too will smile, and because we will take advantage of that infrastructure and move products and materials by rail, so that it will save us a lot of cost and save our roads as well. Federal character in agencies, you know that it is a condition precedent that before you employ, federal character has to approve. So I believe that that is already very much in play in the Ministry of Petroleum. If you see names here that do not reflect, most of the people here are not the heads of the agencies. Some of the heads of agencies, as I told you, are not here with us. And I can tell you, we are very mindful of federal character in the Ministry of Petroleum.
The capital projects of the Ministry of Petroleum Resources, sir. The capital projects of the Ministry of Petroleum Resources in 2020 mostly are ongoing from 2019 projects, based on the directive from the federal government that we should concentrate more on the ongoing projects and try and finish most of them. So we have, if you look at the main document that was given to honorable members on pages 21 to 23, we have the capital projects of the Ministry of Petroleum listed there. Majorly, they are the ones we have done from 2019. We have project monitoring and evaluation, which is something we do all the time to ensure that projects are delivered in the oil and gas industry. We have the implementation of the new gas policy, which was passed sometimes last year, and we have a projects on that goes around the LPG penetration in 774 local governments, the Nigerian Gas Flare Commercialization Program. We have the ongoing bid round that was done under in order to monetize the gas. We have a project office, and we have some projects on that. We have litigations and legal services payments. We have the oil and gas production economic model, which is a project that's been ongoing for the past 1 year, and it is practically to be able to model the scenarios, different scenarios of revenue from our oil resources, and then the upcoming bid round that is being planned to be able to do it based on good estimates. We have the oil and gas sector reforms. We have a number of projects under that. One of such is we have a guiding policy on acreage management, which we are planning to conclude within the first quarter of 2020, because DPR being the supervisor, they roll out guidelines for each bid round, but there is no omnibus guiding policy. So the ministry is rolling out one very soon. We're working with DPR on that. We have a new project on pipelines infrastructure rebate. I remember you asked some questions on the state of the infrastructures, like the pipelines, due to vandalization over the years. So we have... Yes.
There's 1.4 billion, 1,456 million that was appropriated in 2019. Are you telling us that nothing has been released? First 10%, then the subsequent 30% that we are expecting to make it 40%.
Okay.
Because it is the same figure that was appropriated in 2019 that we are trying to roll over to 2020.
Okay.
So, are you telling us you are not receiving a single penny?
As at today,
at the end of this year, nothing is going
no, as at today, the Ministry of Petroleum has not received a kobo under capital budget. As at today, nothing has been released. I thought you wanted I thought you asked for. Sorry, Honorable. I thought you wanted to know the projects.
We are expecting 40%.
Thank you.
We are expecting 40%.
Yes. Okay.
last year, we requested 709 for the salary, personal enrollment.
Okay.
2019.
Okay.
709.
Yes, sir.
And now you are requesting for 690.
Okay.
Are you telling us no promotion and a lot of people in that industry are dying that are going to retire them? What are you telling us? That is one.
Okay.
We requested 690 now.
Right.
Against the 709 million.
Yeah.
Then the other question is to Mr. Polo. Mr. Polo. BPR. Okay.
All the problems associated with the tanker drivers, the pipeline vandalization, the tanker explosions, all this, if actually you want to monitor them effectively, the current number of staff you have are not adequate for you to do it. So please have it at the back of your mind. When you come to engage us on your other budget, this will continue to feature. You are grossly understaffed.
The issue of the pipeline, if the minister can take 1 minute, and respond to the question, then we can close the ceremony.
Important piece of infrastructure that we need. It is expected to move gas across the length and breadth of Nigeria. Across the length of Nigeria, or the breadth of Nigeria. So far, there is a gas pipeline to Ajaokuta. We are also now planning to continue it from Ajaokuta to Abuja, and from Abuja, Kaduna, from Kaduna to Kano. That's why it's called the AKK. And that will now create a development corridor. We believe that any industry that requires gas can hook up to the line, to the pipeline, so that you can have power projects across Nigeria. It's very important for the development of Nigeria, because today, the power situation in Nigeria, you know, is at the root of our underdevelopment, because you can't do much without power. So the AKK line is one of the projects, flagship project that this ministry seeks to achieve. Unfortunately, we have not made too much progress. We thought by now we would have made progress with the Chinese. The Chinese were to fund this project. And we believe that, okay, this project is commercially viable. So why do we use money from budget to fund a project that is commercially viable, when you know that you have schools and health facilities to build as a government that nobody will want to build for you? So the Chinese, of course, showed interest in participating in this project, but unfortunately we had some problem. We have put down our counterpart funding of 15%, but the Chinese wanted something more than what they requested before. They said they needed sovereign guarantee. And you know, sovereign guarantee is a very, very sensitive issue. And so the project, the discussions with the Chinese was stalled. Right now we have a few other people that are showing interest in the project, and the discussions are ongoing. I want to just tell you that we are still very committed to this project, and I still believe that before the end of this administration, the AKK pipeline will be a reality. If the AKK pipeline is not done, then there are already some projects in the Niger Delta that will be stranded. The OP3 project, for example, which is already ongoing. That is supposed to hook onto the AKK pipeline. So if we don't do the AKK pipeline, then the gas that will come out of the OP3 project will be stranded. And also, the AKK pipeline is supposed to connect to the Trans-Saharan pipeline as well, that take gas from here all the way to Algeria and probably take gas to Europe through the Algerian pipeline. So it's a very important project, and I believe that soon we will see the commencement of this project. We hope very strongly that next year we will be able to solve all the funding issues around this project and commence the project. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I would like to call on my colleague, distinguished Senator Albert, Chairman, Senate Committee on Upstream, to give a closing remark.
Each of the agencies will go before their respective committees to defend their budget formally. I know that PPPRA, PEP will go to downstream, NMPC, NGC will go before gas for gas infrastructure projects, and of course DPR, PTI, PTDF will go before upstream to defend the details of their budgets. So we believe that at such a platform, you will have an opportunity to dig deep into most of the key areas of their respective budget. But let me thank the minister for coming out here, and of course you understand the logistics issues we had when you first came in, and we thank God that at the end of the day we've held this ministry's budget defense. We want to assure you as members of the National Assembly, on behalf of all our leaderships, that we have demonstrated our readiness and our commitment towards supporting Mr. President achieve his greater vision for Nigeria. And then that commitment was demonstrated at the Senate when we passed the Deep Offshore Inland Basin Act. As I speak with you, I can confirm to you that that bill is already in the House of Representatives. And by the time they are resuming for plenary on the 29th, it will be, we believe that it will be concurred there so that Mr. President can sign it into law. If Mr. President signs it into law in November, then of course, you know, we will take advantage of November, December, which will be additional almost $150 million to the country. So we are very conscious of that. Because as a country, we are looking for how to fund our budget deficits. And this National Assembly is poised to partner with Mr. President to ensure that dividends of democracy is extended to Nigerians because they voted us into government and leadership. So let me thank you for coming. Thank all members of your extra ministerial agency heads for also supporting you. But let me point out, because we know that there was a presidential directive that no minister, no head of agency should leave the country until after the budget defense. But I know that your head, we've not seen the head of PPRA here. We've not seen the head of PEF here. We've not seen the head of PTDF here. We've not seen the head of NNRA here. So I think if a minister can take the benefit of appearing before the National Assembly to defend his or her budget, I hope that when we get to when the agency will have to defend their budget before the relevant committees, that they'll be there. If not, we'll take exceptions to it. You know, so I most sincerely thank our colleagues at the National Assembly for making time out, because I know how busy you all are. I'm sure all other relevant, we are all members of other committees, and they're also demanding for our own time. So I thank you for coming, and I thank the minister most sincerely for coming out, taking time out to explain most of the key issues that we have raised as members of National Assembly. We look forward to working with you to especially demonstrate this same commitment towards the passage of the PIB, and then we'll push it till the very end. And also the upcoming licenses renewals, as well as bid rounds. We'll monitor it very, very closely, so we'll be expecting that you'll come up to brief us at the appropriate time. So I thank members of the press, I thank our colleagues, I thank all of you.
We also have another budget defense session. This time it was the Ministry of Internal Affairs during its budget defense session with the House Committee on Reformatory Institutions. At another budget defense session by Ministry of Interior before the House Committee on Reformatory Institutions, Minister of Interior Rauf Aregbesola said the Act on Nigeria Correctional Service, recently signed into law, has brought about expansion of scope of reformatory institutions in the country, and this requires funding.
The Committee on Reformatory Institutions was created prior to the signing of Nigerian Correctional Service Act 2019. It was created out of genuine need for effective functioning of the Nigerian prisons and brings it to par with global best practices. I therefore commend these initiatives on the part of the House leadership and the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The budget, as you are aware, is the most crucial instrument for economic management because it is an annual financial and economic plan for resource mobilization and allocation and a vehicle for achieving public policy goals of the federal government. The key function of the National Assembly of making legislation, representation, and oversight underscores its central role in the sustainable development agenda. It basically represents Nigerians within and outside the shores of this country to ensure that the administration of public policy reflects and meets the needs of the people. Therefore, it is no accident that the National Assembly has the power of the purse to appropriate most efficiently to meet the needs and the aspirations of all members of the society to ensure policies are properly implemented and delivered to target citizens. I would like to assure you, distinguished guests, that the committee, and by extension the National Assembly, is determined and committed to restructuring the Nigerian correctional institutions, the custodial and non-custodial alike. To state that our prisons are in the state of disrepair is stating the obvious. You will agree with me that the discrepant condition of the correctional facilities is largely the result of unimplemented policies for the overhaul of these facilities. However, for the purpose of this meeting, it is pertinent to focus on the way forward. Fortunately, the Correctional Act has already separated the wheat from the chaff for better and effective administration and management. It is important to note also that issues bedeviling our prisons are beyond the mere change of name, but of commitment and determination that will cause a positive change in the administration of our justice system, funding and all other elements that will foster change in all correctional formation and institutions across the country. My honorable colleagues, distinguished guests, restructuring and repositioning of the Nigerian prisons is our collective responsibility. The tiers and arms of government, private sector, and ordinary citizens of this great country. Success story of countries practicing correctional facilities abound. In fact, most of the prisons were turned to refugee centers because of low rate of crime recorded in these countries. The Netherlands is on the road. It is said that the focus on sentencing, and innovative intervention programs as provided in the Nigerian Correctional Act have helped reduce the prison population in these countries. It therefore implies that if the provisions of this Act are tenaciously implemented and translated into tangible outcome then in Nigeria, in this regard, it will be a force to reckon with in the Committee of Nations. Before I conclude, I would like to emphasize that the onus of good governance is for the legislature to work in complete harmony with the executive, since the ultimate objective is the service to the people. I therefore wish to reassure the Honorable Minister and the Controller General of the Nigerian Correctional Service of the Committee's ever-present support and partnership to reposition the service and take it to its rightful place nationally and internationally. The Committee, with the strongest support of the leadership of the House, will ensure proper funding of the service. And on that note, I now invite the Honorable Minister to make his presentation. I thank you all.
You can as well simply ask those who are directly responsible for the administration and management of the correctional services to come without me. So I take this as an honor, and I happily commend you for the extension of that privilege. I will want to call on the CG of the Correctional Service to present his report, after which I might round it up. I thank you for the opportunity.
Controller General of Nigeria Correctional Service, Jafar Ahmed, said the service is proposing a budget of 81 billion naira for 2020.
As you are aware, Mr. Chairman, of recent there was a change from Nigerian Prison Service to Nigerian Correctional Service, and we are one out of other members of the criminal justice system. And in this new membership, this act, we are given both for custodial and non-custodial services. Our aim, our vision is to protect society. Our mission is to reform the inmates. As you are aware, this law was signed on the 31st of July 2019, and it brought a lot of succor to the managers of the Nigerian Prison Service as it then was, because the act broadly gave two issues, custodial and non-custodial issues. The objectives as assigned in that act, Mr. Chairman and honorable members, is to ensure compliance with the international human rights standard and good correctional practices, provide enabling platform for implementation of non-custodial measures, enhance the focus on corrections and promotion of reformation, rehabilitation, and reintegration, and D, to establish institutional, systematic, and sustainable mechanisms to address the higher number of persons awaiting trial. And for that, we have offices across the country, national headquarters, zonal office, state commands, custodial and non-custodial centers around. The functions that are assigned to the custodial service, as I say broadly, are as follows: take custody of all those persons legally interned, provide safe and secure and humane for inmates, convey remand persons to and from courts in motorized formations, identify the existence and causes of antisocial behavior of inmates, conducting risk and need assessment, and developing appropriate correctional treatment methods for reformation, rehabilitation, and reintegration, implementing reformation and rehabilitation programs to enhance the integration of inmates back into the society, initiating behavior modification in inmates through the provision of medical, psychological, spiritual, and counseling services for all offenders, including violent extremists, empowering the inmates through the deployment of educational and vocational skills training, and facilitating incentives and income generation through custodial farm and industries, administering Bostel and related institutions, providing support to facilitate the speedy disposal of cases of persons awaiting trial, and for performing other functions as may be required to further the general goals of the service. And for the non-custodial service, which is the other arm of the Nigerian Correctional Service, we are given the mandate of parole, probation, community service, restorative measures, and any other special duty of a measure that may be assigned to the correctional service by the court of competent jurisdiction. And there shall, for that purpose, be a national committee on non-custodial measures to be appointed by the Mr. President and constituted by the National Assembly. The National Committee on Non-Custodial Measures shall establish the technical committee on parole, probation, community service, restorative justice measures, and special duties, including any other thing as may be determined by the National Committee on that. And for that to happen, and for us to have, for one part of the custodial matter, we have 293 formations spread across the country, out of which there are about 139 main prisons, 85 satellite prisons, 17 farm centers, and 3 Bostel institutions for now. Mr. Chairman, I'm on page 7, which states the 2019 budget performance as requested in the letter that is addressed to me, requesting me to appear before this committee. I've broken them down into 4 sections. Section A, the personnel costs. In 2019, the sum of 50,690,761,748 was appropriated on personnel costs. for the Nigerian Prison Service as it then was. At the end of September 2019 a gross amount of 31,491,468,136.70 kobo, representing 62.11, has been released for the payment of salaries, FGN employee pensions, NHIS contributions through IPPIs. The balance of appropriation of 19,199,293,611.30 kobo, representing 37.9, is yet to be released. The recurrent overhead. The sum of 19,835,198,510 was appropriated to the recurrent overhead cost for custodial measures, which includes prison ration 15,335,541,270, and prison overhead running costs, which is 4,499,657,240. At the end of the month of September, the sum of 14,056,799,006.50 kobo, representing 17.9%, has been released and utilized, leaving an outstanding appropriation of 5,578,399,503.6, representing 29.6% of the overhead costs. Capital. The sum of 14,088,218,430 was appropriated to the capital budget, and we are still expecting the first quarter release. Internally generated revenue. Mr. Chairman, you know, and members to be aware that the Nigerian Correctional Service is not a revenue generation agency, but with the new law, there are possibilities that it may be able to generate more than what is generating now. But what we generate, Mr. Chairman, is translated in terms of the quantum of our ability for the socio-economic activities to take place across the country for the prisoners that we hold, to be able to have a peaceful environment for socio-economic activities to take place. But however, we have been able to generate 45,180,172.50 kobo as of September 2019 from various revenue sources. The said sum are already in the single treasury account. Chairman, the page 8 lays the outline of the various sources, including the revenue charges that I have just mentioned. Appendix A, Mr. Chairman, represents the Nigerian Correctional Service budget performance, everything as I have highlighted already. Appendix B contains the personnel costs that I have said. Appendix C conduct the budget performance in terms of the overhead running costs, which I have highlighted. And Appendix H contains the overhead for capital releases, which we enjoyed last year, towards the end of last year. And page 9, Mr. Chairman, represents the total staff strength, the breaking down of the personnel costs, which when we finish and finally they are captured in IPPIs, the total staff strength will be 34,340. Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I would want to proceed to 2020 budget proposal.
Item 20, local training. The first one says local travels and transport and training. Now, expenditure that has been done is 107 million. Am I correct? Yeah. 107 million has been released and spent. Is that true? Control General.
What is the item number?
Item 1 and item 20. Recurrent overhead. Am I correct with what I said?
Yes.
So if I'm correct, a budget performance will show where these people were trained, how many personnel were trained. That's what is called budget performance. And when was such training done? Those are called budget performance for us to know the section of the staff that you have trained and to be able to make projection for the future. Now, I want you to also reconcile item 1 and item 20, because this is what we see in budget every year, repeating the same item in training.
If you go to item 20, it says local training. 88 million has been spent in that area. Now, you also go to item 10 on drugs and medical supplies. You must give us analysis of what you have supplied so that to be able to know whether there are remaining stocks that are available. For us to juxtapose this with the current one you are projecting. Because there may be some leftover. Because the budget performance, we needed to do detailed analysis on the status of the correctional service, what is available. I am seeing a lot of projection on vehicles now. How many vehicles for now is available? I will see, we'll still go further. Now, you also go to item 2, local travel and transport, which is the same item, 146 million. Mr. Chairman, the analysis of this expenditure must be made known to the Parliament. Parliament does not work in blindness. Parliament is to do due diligence. And it beholds on the executive to be accountable. And how can the executive be accountable? They can only be accountable by giving us the vivid analysis of what this money has been applied to. What I'm saying here, and with all your explanation, you have not even touched it at all. It then means the 2020 budget cannot be touched at all until these provisions of these basic informations are made known to the people's representative. That is on that one. Then I also go to the issue of uniform. When you go to the issue of uniform, item 12, Mr. Chairman, you'll find out that 429.8 million has been spent. How many of these items, uniforms, were purchased? What is the number of this uniform? And what kind of uniform? Is it for staffs or is it for prisoners? Now, these are issues, the information members want to know. We don't work in blindness. So when I say budget performance, you must give it vivid analysis so that when we are making provision for 2020, we must know the direction we are going to. And if somebody asks me in my federal constituency, how are you taking care of? Like my prison in my area, it has not been renovated since 1960. In Kwale. I'm aware of that. Now we are budgeting, I've seen what we have budgeted for a maximum distance of capacity of 3,000 or what inmates in Abuja. Most of the crime we see today are committed in the villages. Now, so we need information on the expenditure of this 426 million. I'm coming, I'm going forward. You also talk about maintenance of motor vehicles, transport, and all what have you. How many vehicles were maintained in the year 2019? Item 14. How many vehicles were maintained out of stocks? How many vehicles does the correctional service have as of today? Because you projected another one to be purchased in 2020. How many do you have as of now? How many are not motorable? How many are to be serviced, not provided? No. Then you go to motor vehicles fuel costs us. You are talking about 374 whooping millions. How many vehicles did you fuel? How many? So we need to know the status of vehicles that is in the pool of correctional service. Because we're saying correction. It is not just to correct people that have been convicted, but it's also to correct our ways of expenditure. That's the sense of this. And Mr. Chairman, having looked at it comprehensively, which other members are going to look, we should not go ahead in any budget of 2020. We still have time. Between now and Monday, most of this information should be provided to the committee. Tuesday is another issue. We could slate them for Tuesday. But these issues, I cannot vividly project any budget of 2020 the correctional service is bringing if I cannot use the indices
that are available for 2019 to make projections. If not, I will just be sitting down as honorable member that concur. And it's not my duty to make concur for anything. It is I'm elected to make sure that I vividly look at the papers of the correctional services or reformatory sent areas, to make sure that even the people who are sending to jail, it's a correction. We want to go send them to there to be corrected. And if to be corrected, I will know that their welfare is also well taken care of. That's the essence of this committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are there more prisoners or convicts in 2019 than 2020? Because I understand that by the reason of the new act, your activities will change. Can you guide us? Can you give us the numerical strength? We now know we have 34,000 warders or corrective teachers, am I right? And you're also supposed to do international best practices. We have an idea the number of warders to a prisoner in the advanced society. We also need to know the number of inmates so we can also make some projections. Because if I say now, this 2020 imaginary budget, is it for 10 inmates or is it for 1 million? That will help us too, even though the figure is not static. They will be adding and they will be subtracting, as some will come, some will also serve out. I don't know. We may need to know. Now, Mr. Chairman, in view of the serious issues he raised, I may want to know the data, the information we want, how soon can they be available? How soon? So that we do not delay the work. We need to have a departure from the past and present a new budget year as we've been proclaimed now. So I need to know this. Chairman, I hope I have your attention so it will help us, because the figures and the facts will help us go on. It is our view and intention that the new correctional services must excel, must achieve their core mandate. If there's nothing we can, if we succeed in their core mandate, that means we're moving forward. That means the prison ratio the inmates should be reducing. Thank you very much.
Bringing the total number to 75,463. Mr. Chairman, we have just begun the implementation of the Nigerian Correctional Service. The bill was just signed into act on the 31st of July 2019, which is just barely 2 months plus, and therefore we have just begun the implementation of that. And for us, we are looking at a period within a very short possible time, if funding is given, for us to implement, and if other states have also demonstrated the Administration of Criminal Justice Act 2015 to give effect to the non-custodial service of parole, probation, and others, then it means we are looking at a total prisoner reduction from that period. We will expect it, and the prisoner population will reduce drastically. That's our hope. I'm answering the...
Wait now, we don't know where your directions are.
Yes.
I want to ask a question. How soon will you be able to provide this information? Please. If somebody is already...
No. The honorable member was asking me how soon will the prisoner population reduce. Yes. That was my understanding.
So how soon will the information that I raised come to us? That's what I'm trying to know. That is what I want to know. Well, that's not information is written.
It will not give us when to bring it. We will take it when to bring it.
Mr. Chairman, any information that is required on the surface that are raised, is something that we can provide because we know how these monies are expended, and we have evidence of how this money is expended. We are serving over 5,000 courts across the nation. On daily basis, we take prisoners and two from the courts. And therefore, it is something that we burn fuel, we service these vehicles. It is a thing that the vehicles will never be enough for the prisoners to do that. We have only budgeted for 1,000 naira per prisoner per month for his treatment. For treatment of malaria in Abuja, it takes how much? For all of us, we know, to treat malaria, but we just budgeted 1,000 for the drugs, and we have the drugs nationwide. We have them in the stores here in the national headquarters if the members of the reformatory committee want to see before we disburse them. We have every information on local travel and training. We know what we have trained, and we know we have to pay them their training allowance and the rest of them, and we know everything that we have done. It is very clear, it is there, we can give but we are, our understanding, the letter addressed to us did not say we come with these statistics. We would have come and attacked the statistics for it to be justified and suffered by suffered, so that we know the expenditure can be very clear.
The Reformatory Service Commission to continue with their presentation of 2020 budget, and they should also submit the details of these expenditures as at when you so approve. I so move, Mr. Chairman.
Give them time to furnish us with all the information as demanded by the committee. We have a discussion.
Yes, as a call.
Those in support.
Do we have any objection?
No, those in just.
Those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those against.
Yes, aye.
Honorable Minister, our dear citizens, it is the ruling of the committee that will allow you the correctional service
to go ahead and present the 2020 budget. Though we are not satisfied with the presentation of budget performance of 2019, and that's why the committee is demanding that we have more detailed information on the 2019 budget performance. We want to have the documents item by item between now and Tuesday, and then the committee will go on to do justice to the presentation of 2020. That is our ruling. You have the floor, Mr. CG, to go on and present your 2020 appropriation.
The major changes made in the service operation, including the change of name from Nigerian Prison Service to Nigerian Correctional Service, follow the enactment of the signing into law of the Nigerian Correctional Service Act 2019 on the 31st of July 2019. The Act consists of custodial and non-custodial service. The custodial service is akin to the retributive system of law and open out, while the non-custodial incorporates the modern principles of following measures of parole, probation, community service, restorative justice, and special duties. Therefore, the non-custodial measures brought about additional budget and cost implication upon the existing custodial measures should it be properly integrated and implemented. A total budget of 81,017,506.13 is partly the Nigerian Correctional Service 20 custodial budget, which comprises of the following heads: personnel, overhead, and capital. Personnel, the sum of 46,794,089,085 has been proposed for personnel costs of the Nigerian Correctional Service on a template provided for MDS, in which the service operates 4 salary structures: compass, commerce, CONHES, and compass, and a breakdown of staff strength of 34,340. The Appendix A clearly spells out those breakdowns of the personnel costs, the entire Appendix A. Overhead proposal for custodial, The service proposed a sum of 19,835,198,590 on overhead costs, which is made of 15,163,770 for feeding of projected 81,358 custodial inmates, kennel dogs, officers on training courses, the radicalization of extreme terror suspects, including vulnerable groups, and 4,671,297,740 as custodial service overhead running costs, which cover the cost of local and transport, uniforms and other clothing, maintenance of motor vehicles and transport, equipment, local training, capacity building, office accommodation, rent, motor vehicle fuel costs, among others. The breakdown is in Appendix B. Honorable Chair and members. And lastly, the service proposed for 2020 budget is based on 2019 capital ceiling of 14,388,218,438 roll over to 2020, as yet there is no release so far on 2019 capital project. Nevertheless, this will cover construction, provision of office buildings, purchase of operational vehicles, purchase of security equipment, rehabilitation of custodial centers, and barracks nationwide. The breakdown of the capital cost is in Appendix C. Mr. Chairman and honorable members. So the total budget summary for the Nigerian Correctional Service, Mr. Chairman, honorable members, personnel cost 46,794,089,085. Overhead cost 19,835,198,510. Capital cost of 14,388,218,438, giving a total of 81,017,506,013 naira. Respectively, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the service has not been without some modest achievement. Before I say what are our problems and constraints, we have been able to make a very modest achievement, Mr. Chairman. We have been able to upgrade some of our infrastructures. As the honorable members may wish to recall, that most of our prisons are over 100 years old. They are prisons that we have inherited, and it was only with the grace of this administration, which started in 2016, that we begin to see intervention in the various prison formations across the country. Otherwise, this service has been a neglected service, a service that has not received the desired attention it requires. Only with the administration of President Muhammad Buhari that we are able to receive the attention, and therefore we started with a quantum of upgrade of our infrastructure and construction of new facilities across the nation. That before we lack the vehicles, we use our own vehicles to transport inmates to and from the coast, and that's why we have often been accused and been a problem to court sittings and access to justice. Thank God with this administration, we can now boast of about 649 vehicles spread across the nation. Formerly, Kuje here has only 2 vehicles and serving 97 courts within the FCT. And you can see that it's an equivalent text to leave from Kuje, to go to Apo, to go to Bari, and the rest of that, and come back with the inmates again on every and daily basis for 5 days in a week. That has been the tax. And so vehicles, we need more of them, and we need more money in terms of capital to be able to intervene. In terms of healthcare, we have been able to provide Medicare. There has been general improvement. The mortality rate has reduced, and the prisoners' health has improved tremendously. And we won Nigeria accolade in 2018 by winning the Confucius Prize for Literacy. We won about 4 prizes in 2018. For the first time in the history of the Nigerian Prison Service, they won prizes. We hold the superior achievement of branding in repetition and engineering, which we receive in Gaborone in Botswana. We receive a certificate of excellence on public sector of government, which we receive also in Botswana. We received the United Nations Confucius Prize for Literacy at Paris, UNESCO headquarters in 2018, and we won the International Public Relations Association Golden Award on crisis management for media campaign on prison decongestion and plight of this in 2018. So for the first time, the prison system in Nigeria, or what you now call correctional service, has begun to improve because of the necessary fundings. We have been able to train over 11,037 officers, have been trained and retrained over this period. And so it is something that we have begun to do. And for the first time, Mr. Chairman, we have a PhD student in our prisons. We have over 23. We have over 23 that are doing their masters. We have over 537 that are undergoing various degree programs with the National Open University. We have people who have passed WAEC and NECO with 5 credits in various places. We have people that have also gotten NCE with our collaboration with College of Education Yawa in Ogun State. They have recruited, in 2017, they did 49. We have over 60 now that have matriculated again and are doing their programs in those. And we hope to expand these programs as funding is improved so that we give the effect. Formerly, the law that we have been using has not said anything about reformation and rehabilitation. But now this assembly has given, and the act has given us the power for reformation, rehabilitation, and therefore it means it will have to attract funding. And that's what we expect. So we have some modest achievements that we have been able to achieve, Mr. Chairman. However, Mr. Chairman, we still look forward to this committee to look into certain areas. We are still having prisons that are congested. Our prisons are congested with awaiting trial passes. We have prisons that are overlooking, far above the capacity of them. If we look at Port Harcourt, they have 804 capacity, but they are looking over 4,000 prisoners. Out of this number, over 3,700 are unconvicted persons. So we need to address that issue. This committee should assist the service to address this issue. There is dilapidated structures in most of the custodial centers, and I'm happy that one of the members have raised the issue of Kwale, that it has been there like it was perhaps since the colonial period, and it is because of the lack of funding. It is the wish, and I'm sure that I have not been to Kwale, but I'm sure that that prison must have been sandwiched now within the urban center. And that is most of the prisons in the urban areas that we inherited are already sandwiched within the urban areas. And that's why we are looking at a program to move some of these facilities away from the urban centers to a place where they will be more secure. After all, the new law provides that you cannot build any building 100 meters from any prison facility, any custodial facility, 100 meters from that. But you see in a place where not more than 5 meters, sometimes 3 meters. Sometimes there are prisons, satellite prisons, that will share the same wall with other houses. These are problems, and therefore these dilapidated structures need to be addressed. There is still inadequate logistics to be able to provide for taking of prisoners to and from the courts. The higher population of condemned convicts, Mr. Chairman, is another problem because the approving authorities are not ready. However, we are lucky and happy that this new law has provided that once an inmate is condemned and has exhausted all his appeal, and 10 years has elapsed, we can approach the Chief Judge of the state, where he was first convicted by the court, for him to be committed to life imprisonment. This will, no doubt, leave them from that period of being as condemned on death row to an opportunity where maybe they may see the light at the end of the tunnel. There is still inadequate staff. With the new law that is asserted that there is a need for us to employ more staff for the non-custodial service and for the custodial service itself, because we now need more specialized staff in order to provide for the reformation and rehabilitation and integration of staff. We need specialized staff, those who have read certain courses that we need to employ more, and that's why we made the request for more additional funding. There is still poor funding on capital projects, and the capital project we have been given is grossly inadequate for us to cater for the years of neglect and for what we intend to do and for the new responsibility that is assigned to us. So, Mr. Chairman, I thank you for this opportunity.
Permit me to ask some questions in front of bullet point before I go on.
We would like to appreciate your nominal role, particularly the very top officers. Are they federal character compliance? I'm from Abia State. Two, I saw in the area of agriculture and so on, I don't know the kind of value budgetary allocation. Because I think the way to go now is to have enough food. You must have sound agricultural facilities, even mechanized. We done in 1 year time, but we must begin. I see a lot. Then the non-custodian thing. How are you going to do it? I need to tell us more, because it's like they'll be coming from their homes, or they'll be free, or doing community services. So can you enlighten us too, so I will know? Then, as to vehicles, I do not know. It's quite a pity. Because what you explained, I talked only about Kuje. Prison congestion is also caused by non-appearance of what they call it, the suspects. A magistrate will wait from 9 o'clock till 1 o'clock. He won't bring, so he first start join, particularly in those areas. Not your own fault. So you must have those, Maria, whatever you call it, sufficient enough. I also noticed that a vehicle meant for 7 occupants, and you will have 10, 17, or 20, as the case may be. They treat them, even goats are not put like that, going to market for sale. They're not even put like that. So I think that you should have good vehicles, enough to do that. That's the only way you can decongest the place. I therefore think that, Chairman, we've seen what they present, so that others can also ask questions. I will draw final by saying, well, you've not told us about the ladies, the inmates. Do you have a combined prison? How are they kept? How do you run? Because I used to hear of pregnant mothers in prison. Is it the duty of the warders to also do that? Are they the one doing it, or they got pregnant before they came into the prison? It's curious. We have a lot of.
Or is it part of the budget?
That's what I'm saying. How come you have pregnant ladies who are giving birth in prison? And what do you do with such children? And so we really need to know. So you have a whole lot of work to do. So I also think that having put this together, we need an expert to tell us what details how it will cost, because it's either we'll fund you very well to do the needful, or we will still remain in our old name.
For appropriation for 2019, you can see that we have a total appropriated amount of 19.8 billion. Now, coming to 2020, you would also see that the same amount is reflecting without any change. No, most of the items are almost the same. What they budgeted or what was appropriated in 2019 is the same thing they are repeating in 2020. So my little worry here is, I don't know if the services have taken into consideration fluctuations, inflation rates and other things to really come up with the 2020 budget. So I would need a further explanation so that we will know that maybe you were overpaid or the amount is over appropriated in 2019. So the same amount will suffice for 2020. So if you may please shed more light, I think the committee will be interested to hear you out. Thank you.
300 and something million was released on an item in 2019. There's no need budgeting 500 and something million for you. We can still repeat 300 and something as released, since that is the threshold upon which all the releases are done. That means you don't need the extra. So that we can carry the extra and put in another item, probably that needs a lot of demands for it. So, Mr. Chairman, the basis of analysis of this budget is 2019 data, which has not been provided. And that's the reason why that we needed those data to be able to make projection for future. And we are encountering it as of now. Because when I look at item by item, Mr. Chairman, You looked at issues of drugs. Same. No, not even one single amount is different. You also looked at uniform. Same. So you needed those who, okay, if 20 prisoners or probably the staffs have been provided uniform, how many is remaining? It is on that basis we will now use to make projection. Say this is what we are covering in the next 1 year. But now those information are not before us. So we are going to look at the releases done in 2019 and call the other money, remaining one, and plug it elsewhere. Probably that is what they want us to do. And in wanting us to do that, so we don't need much deliberation on it. So the committee should come to a conclusion and probably divert those money to certain else because they don't need it. That's my conclusion on the matter.
All the organs of democracy seek to ensure transparency and openness. I agree absolutely with the honorable member that queried every bit of the budget and the performance of it for this year, and predicating his readiness to assess the proposed budget, as well as stamp any amount of money for it based on how well the previous allocation or proposals were spent. But that said, I need to make some few remarks that will open our eyes. In America, the average expenditure on correctional service on an annual basis is more than our total annual budget. It's $81 billion. 81, and we must know that, I'm sorry I'm using dollars, we must first of all know that the totality of our 13 trillion naira budget is about $33 billion. But the amount spent on the average every year on correctional service in America is $81 billion. But let's assume that does not even bother us. Let us find out how much does America spend on its 2.2 million inmates of correctional facilities. They have 2.2 million inmates to our about 75,000 inmates here. How much does each inmate cost on the average? Or how much does each inmate take per day? Because that will help us to understand the issues that we are actually looking at. Each inmate of an American correctional facility costs between 31,430 naira, 55 kobo. And because, you know, their own system, their federal system is so well ingrained that local governments have prison facility, states have prison facility, and the federal government has. But in total, you have some states and federal government facility spending 31,430 naira 55 kobo per day per inmate, and some states spend 60,833 naira 33 kobo per day. But I want to emphasize this for us to know where we are and where we should be in Nigeria. And this you can do by the projection. We're not even talking about the release. By the projection of about 18 billion naira, and it's not now all spent on the inmates. If you look at the breakdown, the core expectation on the inmates is the ration allocation, the food allocation, and the medical allocation. All the rest is about movement, electricity, and what have you. But let's even assume every kobo of the 18 billion or thereabout, let me be sure of the figure because I don't 19 billion, yeah, of the 19 billion allocated for overhead, proposed overhead, which we include. I want to be sure this figure is right. Yes, 19 billion 835 million 198,410 naira. Let's take totality of it that is going to the prison inmates. I want now to know what is that, what does that really amount to on a daily basis? Is 730 naira 15 kobo, 13 kobo. So when you look at what is actually there in totality to service the inmates, you know that already we are working on a tightrope. When in reality, if you want to go by what is operating in the Nigerian society, it is difficult for you to even keep anybody in confinement and not provide food worth 1,000 naira per day. The totality of his stay, electricity bill, location, facility for training, either at secondary, post-secondary, or vocational, and other things that must go. Uniform is less than 1,000 naira. It's 730. You can do the calculation yourself. I'll give you the figure. You have the figure with you. Divide by 75. Some 75,000. 75,000 inmates. So my concern is this: why not in any way inducing you to overlook your oversight function? Why not appealing to you not to be critical in analysis of this budget? Just know we are operating at a level that is difficult to manage. And that if we are genuine about our desire to have a criminal justice system that will prevent escalation of crime, we just have to see how we can manage what we have or use your own power of appropriation to support us. Don't forget, with the correctional bill, law, it's no longer a bill. With the correctional act that is there now, we must rebrand. It will come from the overhead. What does that mean? It means the present outlook of the service must be changed. If you want to give the service the import of the new law. So all this put together calls for some deep consideration and reflection from all of us. Let me conclude on this. People may think, why do we even need correctional service? Of course, all our effort at crime control will amount to nothing if there are no places to separate those who have been identified as being dangerous to society. You must be able to separate dangerous elements from those who are still living a sane and decent life. So on that, I rest my case, as I thank you for the opportunity to be here.
And that brings us to the end of today's package. Join us same time next week for another edition of the program.
For anyone who values financial security and ultimately desires financial freedom, creating at least one additional stream is no longer a luxury. It has become a necessity. Diversifying your income stream is crucial to protect yourself and your family against the unavoidable ups and downs of economic and industry cycles. Because of the financial risk that comes from relying on one source of income, such as a job or a business, consider creating at least one or more additional streams to generate cash flow. The benefits of having multiple streams of income include peace of mind because you know there will always be money to spend. Also, you will earn much more than you currently earn from your day's job. Therefore, you will live bigger and better. Your additional income streams can be active, passive, or a combination of the two. Some may pay you for doing something that you love, active, while others can provide income for you without having to do much of anything at all, passive. Here are multiple streams of income opportunities: selling information in hard book format, selling information in the form of downloadable ebooks, making money from referral opportunities, training classes, consulting opportunities, dealership opportunities, design opportunities, manufacturing opportunities, investment opportunities. The list is definitely not exhaustible. To create wealth, you must make investment that will create dependable streams of income flows, independent of your main source of income. The time to act is now. Begin implementing this practice, and before you know it, within months, you can be enjoying the benefits and the financial security and freedom that comes from having multiple streams of income.
NTA, Samburu County, Kenya.
Hikes for fuel and bread, which triggered the uprising that led to the ouster of veteran ruler Omar al-Bashir. Finance Minister Ibrahim al-Badawi told Reuters the country has only enough foreign currency reserves to fund imports for a few weeks.
We will do our part, but we cannot do it alone. For this government to succeed, for this revolution to proceed into stable democracy in this very, very critical part of Africa and the Middle East, we need understanding and the support, and I'm quite certain we will get it.
Sudan has been in crisis since losing most of its oil wealth with South Sudan's secession in 2011. 65% of the population live in poverty. Prices for even basic foods like bread remain high, and most people say they have to work twice as hard to cope with soaring market prices.
I expected that the government, once people took to the streets and the youth took to the streets, we hoped that things would change. The situation's worse. People are standing in line for bread to eat lunch. They can't find any.
The civilian government, formed in August to steer the country through transition, says the funding is a lifeline and would be used to set up a social support network that would allow fuel and wheat subsidies to be lifted next year. Al-Badawi said it has already drawn slightly more than half of the $3 billion offered by Saudi Arabia